This is not good.
4 ponies shuffled along the dismal white halls of Ponyville Hospital, and one bounced. Twilight fell behind and couldn't mask the tears of guilt and shame she felt for Applejack's
Because
condition.
Twilight knows exactly what's happened.
She knew she was to blame.
Is
Doctors
Lost
had
voicing
refused
RD2?
Applejack visitors for the first few days, trying to rein in her sanity. They contacted Twilight personally when they were medically stumped as to why she wasn't responding to their sedatives. Twilight pored over her notes, gleaming every detail that she had on the subject of the potion she had never mastered. Book after useless book was thrown in disarray, while she and her friends waited to see their ailing friend. When the time had come at last, weeks after the initial incident, Twilight felt like nothing short of a complete failure. All she had learned was that the potion she had inadvertently created was robbing Applejack of her sleep, and there was no known cure. Pinkie Pie bounced happily in denial, paused at the door, and declared out loud,
"We're here!"
She turned to see the hopeful smiles from her friends, with the exception of Twilight, who hung her head in shame.
Come now, darling. I'm sure Applejack will forgive you. It was an honest mistake, and you were only trying to help.
Forgive me? She may not even recognize me. Terrible things happen to ponies when they don't sleep, Rarity. Some pony who has been awake this long has never been seen before, all else considered. Applejack should be dead right now.
Well, that's not very cheery. We're supposed to be cheery, remember? It's not like we haven't run into these kind of problems before. You'll figure it out, Twi. And you will be fine.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Her friends knew it was a lie, and not a convincing one at that. But it was all the permission they needed to press onward.
I don't know.
No pony knew what to expect when they opened that door.
I am a little
They were
concerned.
surprised to see the lights were off, and there was a momentary hope that Applejack might have finally fallen asleep. While Rainbow searched the wall for a light switch, the ponies all turned their nose up to the strange smell.
Is that?
Rarity started, but was quickly cut off. Moments before the light
there's
flickered on.
blood.
Blood!
Twilight cried.
Of
The other
hoof-
ponies
of
could only
hoof
stare in
prints of
horror
blood.
at the chaos of the room.
Oh
The hospital
boy.
bed was thrown up against one of the walls, the medical equipment strewn in every corner. The restraints were empty, but the one in the upper left corner of the bed was gnawed clean through and caked with a layer of blood. The blood smeared on the floor and walls showed that quite a struggle had taken place. It didn't take the ponies long to notice the open window and the trail of blood that led to it.
She can't have gone far. Come on!
Rainbow Dash said, soaring out the window in pursuit.
What's she gonna do, Twilight? Will she hurt herself again?
I don't know. We've got to find her. Now!
Applejack, you better be okay, for God's sakes. We love you. Applejack, we love you.
Applejack's
We love you
disappearance
very
was
much. We love
only
you
the
very much.
beginning. When her friends were unable to find her within hours of the discovery, they widened their search to no avail. Days passed with no sign of the Earth Pony, and to make matters worse, other ponies in Ponyville vanished within close proximity. The heat, combined with the unknown, had left much of Ponyville in a blind panic, including a particular green unicorn called Lyra Heartstrings. When she discovered
Lyra
Bonbon was
Heartstrings.
missing from their home that evening, she didn't hesitate to assume the worst. Her mind went into overdrive,
I think Bonbon's dead.
pushing her onward despite the risks of wandering alone. She had to find her. She had searched everywhere Bonbon could have possibly been. Sugar Cube Corner?
Bonbon,
Maybe she was
go
talking to
get
the
'em.
cakes about a new recipe. Vinyl in Octavia's house? They said they hadn't seen her in a few days. Maybe Fluttershy's cottage. Of course. She probably went there for more fresh eggs for the current batch of treats she was making. Lyra continued her gallop, praying and hoping Bonbon was safe. she saw a figure coming into focus among the clearing. They were slumped and slowly making their way along the trail.
Applejack?
She recognized the now disheveled and filthy hat from afar. She galloped up right next to her.
Thank goodness! All of Ponyville has been worried sick about you. Have you seen Bon Bon? All sorts of ponies have gone missing, and not even Princess Twilight has been able to control the panic. But if you're here, then there's hope, right? Maybe Bon Bon and the others are okay too. And wait, what happened to you? Oh, my Celestia, are you all right?
Applejack slowly tilted her head up from the ground to meet the green unicorn's gaze. The haunting glare from pin-pricked pupils and the dark circles around her eyes sent a terrifying shiver down Lyra's back, catching her off guard. She recoiled away in confusion.
Should I call Pony?
She asked timidly, taking in the true nature of Applejack's
Lyra, if I was you,
appearance
I'd
in
run
horror.
away from that.
She had used a handkerchief to haphazardly stop the bleeding from her left front hoof, where a good chunk of flesh was missing. The restraint marks on her hooves were still present from her excessive thrashing, and the old dirty bandages clung loosely to her back legs. Her skin looked aged and tired, having lost some of its usual orangish color, marred by the scars of the branches that had fallen on her many weeks ago. Her mane and tail were unkept, and although she still wore her iconic hat, it too had been a casualty to the fallen debris and the unknown events that followed. All Applejack could make out from behind her haunted stare was an outline of Filthy Rich, the pony she had been pursuing in her aimless wander. The image her chaotic brain had given him was marked by an unholy grin, the likes of which frightened her at her very core. Thinking fast, Applejack turned and bucked the pony to the ground.
Oh shit.
Lyra was out cold by the time her head hit the dirt road. When Lyra regained her consciousness, she found she had been restrained to what felt like an old tree stump. Her front hooves were secured above her head by something sharp, and when she tried to move them, it sent shearing pain along her hooves, and a fresh trail of blood that trickled onto her brow. Her heart started beating faster, and her breaths became hard and labored. Her torso was crushed against the apple tree in what she assumed to be rope, limiting the use of her lungs.
Holy shit, there's a head right there on the left.
Began to intake her surroundings.
Impaled through a branch.
The rancid odor of death and
What
decay
pony is that?
grew with every labored breath. She thrashed her head back and forth, trying to avoid the trail of blood from her hooves getting into her eyes. It took several minutes for the intense headache and the blurred vision to ease enough for her to see where she was. At first, she could only make out trees and a sunset. She guessed that she was in some part of the Apple family orchard that had been long forgotten, as evidenced by the mangled, overgrown branches and piles of dead leaves littering the ground around them. As her vision progressed, she realized the strange lumps on the trees weren't branches, and the piles below them weren't leaves.
Oh, no.
She closed her eyes tightly, her mind putting the pieces together as her other senses were violated by her current reality. On her next intake of the rancid odor, her eyes fell open, and she let out an ear-piercing scream of terror. The remains of the missing ponies of Ponyville had been the objects she'd seen in her haze.
Oh,
or
God.
rather, what was left of them. Gardening tools and worn rope adorn the apple tree trunks, holding only sparse pieces of ponies they had once held in place. The rest of said ponies laid in misshapen heaps at the bases of the trees. Bones, entrails, and colorful coats now stained crimson with the odor of their deaths carried in the breeze. The tree directly adjacent to Lyra's showed a worn and bloodied hoe had been sharpened and slammed into the tree trunk. Resting atop the blade was the head of Bonbon. The terror still stamped clearly on her face from her final
Oh
moments
my
of
god,
life.
dude.
The rest of Bonbon's body had not been completely severed by the hoe. Her spine was exposed from the neck, and her broken body hung awkwardly around it. Lyra sobbed openly,
Holy
too traumatized
shit.
to understand what was happening, or how to get herself out of harm's way.
Look who finally decided to join us.
Applejack! Thanks, Celestia. Hurry! Get me down from...
Applejack effectively
Oh my
silenced
God.
her. She lassoed the rope around Lyra's neck and pulled it tight, effectively choking her words.
Tain't very nice, you know? Every time I try to talk some sense into you, you refuse to listen. You up and die, you see?
Lyra sputtered and gagged, trying to process what she had seen and connect the carnage to the pony she had once called friend.
But I keep bringing you back. I know how you rich ponies are, thinking you're much better than us country ponies. So much cleverer. Every time you try and hide, I find you, don't I?
Applejack, I'm...
Shut your trap!
Applejack screamed, slamming the shovel against the unicorn's horn so violently that it caused the skull to fracture.
Holy shit! Miss Shirley's hung!
To speak.
Holy
My
shit!
Now, we apples have been on this farm for nearly 4 generations.
Applejack, what are you doing?
We founded this town.
That is not
I'm
good. That
ready-headed.
potion is fucking with her
I said,
head.
shut up! It's rude. Where was I? Oh yeah. And then Pinky was handing them out like they were free samples. No, wait, no, that was Rarity. And then Fluttershy wanted to gather them up like they were tame critters, and I wasn't gonna have any of it. You hear?
Lyra was hyperventilating at this point, using all of her strength to catch her breath under the grip of the rope.
Who are you? What are you doing here? These are my apple trees, you see? Who sent you?
Lyra could only reply by looking Applejack in the eye, trying to convey her plea for mercy.
He sent you, didn't he? He wants this farm. You're a spy!
Applejack screamed
No.
angrily. She released the rope from under her hoof, allowing Lyra to breathe again. She gasped for several moments, grateful for the oxygen she had been denied. She didn't notice Applejack's momentary absence until it was too late. Applejack screamed and thrust the shovel into the mare's side, slicing it open on contact.
We don't take kindly to spies around here.
Applejack pulled the shovel loose and stared at the fresh blood on its blade.
You can tell your boss, filthy rich. He ain't getting this farm.
Please.
Lyra gasped moments before the shovel punctured her skin a second time. She cried out in weak agony, feeling her warm blood seep into her lungs rapidly.
I've worked too hard for too long to let some city pony with deep pockets take.
Applejack started, but was cut off when Lyra coughed up blood and accidentally spat it into her face. Applejack breathed slowly, allowing the anger to come to a boil. She screamed again and thrust the shovel at the mare every time she dared to splash her with blood. By the time she was finished,
My
Lyra
God.
barely looked like a mare at all. Just the loose hanging remains of a demolished creature.
Filthy?
Applejack asked, looking at Lyra's remains and then all around her.
Got away again. Don't you worry. I'll find you, and I'll keep finding you too. You can't hide forever, you coward!
She said, pulling the gardening shears from the hooves that held it in place against the trunk. Lyra's remains sloshed awkwardly to the ground, freeing the rope that had been tied around her torso. Applejack's movements were slow and deliberate, aside from the occasional twitch. Determined to find and punish Filthy for his crimes, she left her little corner of the orchard in pursuit, unaware that his remains had already painted the orchard floor red from Applejack's rage.